Välkommen till Tro och Under från Mediemission International den här fredagskvällen igen. Vi har funnits på kanal 10 i många år och vi är jätteglada över att du finns med oss. Även ikväll har vi ett mycket intressant program där vi kommer att prata om Ryssland, Ukraina. Ryssland ett land i förändring, Ukraina ett land i krig och vi i Sverige har varit med och bett för de här länderna och vi har också sett hur människor har gett sina gåvor till biblar och evangelier som har delats ut i församlingen. Och Hanna Hauka och Hanne Hanein är med oss i studion this night also. Welcome, brothers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This program we will talk about the Arabic department some, what you're working with and how you work, and also about Russia and Ukraine. But first, Hanne, you are the director from of the Arabic department here in the headquarters in Finland,
Yes.
IRR-TV. And I know that you are traveling much and you're seeing God's hand upon the nations. And tell us about maybe some of the history and what you have done and what's on the pipeline. So, because people are curious about it.
Yes. You know, when I see how God's leading us nowadays, you know, we start together like in 2002 to make 180 programs per year in that time. Now we do 1,000 every year in different languages, in Arabic, in Farsi, in Somali, in Amharic, and in South Sudanese, and so on. Whenever I move, and so many people, they said, your program, it is really taking us as a family gathering to see it. And it is not only like individual people coming to Christ. People, they said, we pray with our families to give our life.
Johanna, you mentioned numbers. I want to ask you because I think some people don't quite understand. When you say Arabic, how many people does that mean?
Yeah, you know, like
Countless.
Yes.
No, 400 million?
Yes,
amazing.
like every day are increasing a lot, but around 400 millions because in Egypt, for example, every year they increase 2 million.
Right, so let's say 350 million. And then you mentioned Iran. How many people worldwide?
Yeah, it is like
million.
over 100 millions.
Yeah.
And then, Amharic, it is like 50, 60 millions, and then, like Sudanese and this kind, and Somali, it is like around 40 millions and so on. So again, your potential, it is like, billion of people.
You're broadcasting via some satellites, of course.
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah, we have around 16 satellite channels. When you go to the footprint, and maybe we'll put it now on the screen, like from Morocco to India, covering all this, like area, and especially, like the area of Iran, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan, because God's opening to us this new door. Really, when you hear news, just explosion in this. But God's opening this, channels to reach Iran and Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And also, like when you come, to the feedback, when we are getting most of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and Syria, and this kind of disaster areas and so on. So again, we are focusing so much, how to reach every single person in Arabic nations.
And, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's phenomenal. When I have seen how the Islamic department or the Islamic outreach department has grown in the last 10, 15 years, it's a miracle. That today, when you start from zero. And things grow to the point where you're on 16 satellites, you're on there every day, reaching hundreds of millions of people. It's a miracle. And then, like the feedback is what, 200,000?
200,000 every month, even more. Because sometimes, we're stuck with emails, it's coming like crazy, and of course we use social media a lot, like our team, like it is the language of young people now when they go to social media. So many questions and very critical questions now, because sometimes, churches, leaders, in Arabic nations, they don't have enough time to answer these questions. So we need, like very extended team in every country to meet those people, and sometimes it is very risky to meet some, like Muslims, especially if they are radicals and this kind of. But in our programs, we are just, we don't offend any religious. We are just talking about Christ, who can change the life of people.
And the younger generation, I mean, that's the future.
Yes.
But what do you feel there? The younger generation is hungry. They're searching for God. They're curious about the Christianity.
Absolutely. Young people, they are so hungry, but sometimes we don't know how to reach them.
Okay.
Our Christian screen, sometimes it is out of their, mind.
Yeah.
They don't watch us because they said, we don't get from you anything. Okay. They get it from somewhere else. That's why it is a big challenge for Christians. Please try to, pray a lot that God can give a creative ideas how to reach your generation. They are our future. In the churches, in society. If your new generation or young generations are broken, all the future is disaster. So again, we focus the last few years on news. We produce a lot of programs and we got really good feedbacks.
We know that you are doing more than 1,000 programs every year. And we have some Snapchats we can see here, so welcome. Welcome back to the studio. We saw some Snapchats from different kind of programs you're doing, and I know that in Sweden we have viewers who love the Arabic department. They have relatives, they have been there, come to Sweden, so what would you say to those friends we have in Sweden? I mean, from your heart as a director for Arabic department, because this is an increasing mission field, and we also see that it's touching our nations.
Yes. There are so many, refugees coming to Europe, to Sweden, and so on. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we are focusing in there, in Islamic nations, and they are there. But the mission field is very close. It's your neighbor now. Yeah. And especially, when young people, they move to Europe, they have new environment, atmosphere. Sometimes they are caught by this kind of like mafia, we can say. Yeah. From different kind of challenges, they see freedom is, wow, now I am free, and they can be abused, misled, and so on. That's why, like program to do, to watch Christian program in Europe, it is very special, because young people, like in Europe, they can do a lot of things. They have, now freedom to use whatever. Yeah. So what we are saying, please, focus on your children, because now, like when they go to media, they are, taking every kind of rubbish and this kind of things from media. Christian TV should be, in good shape now to give a good message and for generation.
Yeah. So we will continue to pray for Arabic department and pray for that God will open up new countries. In the previous programs we talked about South Sudan, for example. And
yes, yeah. And actually we are conducting, many conference in Europe. Yeah. Like next week it will be in Södertälje, and it will be broadcast in 8 satellite channels.
It's amazing.
So, it is, from, one church, it goes to millions of the church. Yeah. Of course, we don't forget Europe. We are active,
Now you might say that the Middle East or the Arabic world is a part of our Scandinavia.
Yes, it is.
It's a mix now.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So, Hanno, we are so happy that you are in this work, and we bless you, and we know that you many people pray for you and like you and
Thanks.
it's just the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, like when you see, you know, we would like just God can see us from above and say, you are a good, you know, servant. And just to be obedience of God's call, it is the most important things when you live here. If you are not in God's plan, you know, I mean, what is the value of your life here? And if you don't do that, you know, why we live? It is God allow us to come to be born, not just to be number, like from 7 billion people in the world, to be active and to build his kingdom. And if we don't use it, we will lose it.
So it is. So we thank God for what God is doing, and we will have more information in the programs in the future also, of course, all the time.
Yes, as much.
We have so much to say. But we also have other countries, and Hanno, we know that Sweden love the Middle East to work in the rabbit department, but we also have Russia and Ukraine. And in some way, during the years, via these programs, we have seen that the people in Sweden have been touched when we talked about Russia and Ukraine.
And Sweden has financed hundreds of thousands, even millions of copies of the Bible, New Testament, of the Power to Change books over the years. I mean, through different organizations in Sweden, but through Media Mission, even in itself. Over 1 million copies of different kinds of literature, the Gospel of John or the Kraft till Förändras books. These books have been financed.
How come that the books are such a success in Russia? Well, because it's something about the Russian people, you know that, because you have been there for 40 years.
Well, the books, first of all, the books are special in the sense that you have a book like this that is 100 pages. It has 15 powerful transformation stories. And it has a roadmap to new life in Jesus. This kind of a book, which is high quality, I mean, it's like, this is, of course, in Arabic, but the Russian ones also and everyone else, they're very high quality books. When a person gets this, the person starts to read. And the reason why the transformation stories make sense to the mind is because it's my story. My story, I find it in the covers of the book. Hey, that's my story, or this is my story, or that's my story. This person is experiencing exactly the same thing that I am experiencing. And when that connecting point happens, that's when the Holy Spirit starts to speak and say, your life can change too. You can experience the same change. God is, He is able to do everything to put you back together, to make you whole, to make you to save you and to cut all your bondages. God is able to do that. And in Russia, there's a huge problem with alcohol and also drugs, of course. There's bondage, all kinds of bondage. Not to mention that, you know, like marriages are almost a thing of the past. Like in the Russian society, lots of divorce, all kinds of problems. So, where is the medicine? Who has a solution? People are saying, give me the answers. Somewhere, somebody has to have the answers. And here comes a mega city media campaign, in this case, because they are no longer possible in the present form, or the form that we used to have them. Now we are printing millions of these books, thanks to the Swedish viewers also of this program, and giving them to the churches to use as a powerful tool. I mean, just alone, by using this book, like for the last 3 or 4 years, in Russia. Bishop Edward Grabovenko told me that they had planted over 3,000 house churches or bigger churches, house groups throughout Russia in the last few years, despite the new laws that are very repressive, are very punishing. Even so,
because we cannot do those city missions we done for previous, we cannot do that anymore.
No, it's not possible, because when President Putin, when he undersigned the law in 2016, July, the churches, they became very, very anxious. They became very, well, frightened in a way, what the law would do, and they thought it was for them. But the government said, no, please, this is an anti-terrorist law. This is not. This is for the terrorists. But it turns, that's what they said. But it turns out, 1.5 years later, if you look at 100 court cases, legal cases that were raised under the same law and judged, and prison sentences were declared under the same law. Out of 100 such court cases, 100 of them were directed against the church, not terrorists. And so you see that what the government was saying was not true. And now the churches understand that the government was not on their side. And so, even because of all the restrictions that they have, they said the Great Commission that Jesus Christ gave to His church, it still stands. It's still true, and we will still carry it out. It doesn't matter what the government says, and so they are doing it. And so even here, like in this,
some new information.
Yeah. I mean, we just received this very recently, where you have a whole region in Siberia that's for some reason or somehow was left out. In other words, they didn't get the books that we printed just in the wintertime, last winter. We printed over 1 million books, and they were distributed to the churches for their evangelistic work throughout Siberia, Far East, Ural Mountains. Now, a whole region says we never got any. And so now they gave us an order. They said it's 1 million. And I will read what they said. This is what they are saying. They said, because we never received the books, please have mercy on us, and please give us what we need for our territories. So we need 200,000 copies of the Kraft till Verandels, Power to Change. In Russian, of course, and with Russian stories, obviously. 230,000. Then we need 300,000 New Testaments. We need 200,000 Gospels of John, just for our territory alone, not for all of Russia, just for us.
Wow.
And then 100,000 special youth, Power to Change books for youth, special youth stories, 100,000. And of course, this will cost a lot of money. And you can see that many of these books, the unit price is, it's like it's under €1, and in some cases it's 50 cents, which is about
5 crowns.
5 crowns.
Yeah, it's not.
If you're talking about the salvation of one Russian person,
it costs 5 crowns to go to a toilet on the store or shopping center.
So I mean, think about
that.
Think about that one coin. If you invest it in this, it could change the life of a Russian. It's not.
But how come that Russia is a reading people? Why are they reading books?
Well,
there is some in the history.
It's a part of the culture. In the Soviet Union, the Russians were actually, because they were closed or sealed off from the outside world, they had no contact. So they became, I guess, a country or a nation of reading people. They had books, newspapers, and everything. Much of it was propaganda, but nonetheless, they spent their time reading. They spent their time in the arts. The Russians are culturally very developed. And so that's why reading has always made sense. And even in the villages, when you go to a village and you give this book to them, or a New Testament, or a Gospel of John, they have absolutely no bookstores. There is no place to buy any books. So when they get a gift like this is something, a very rare item. They're saying, hey, I can actually hold something in my hand and I can actually read it.
Yes,
it's wonderful.
And it tells me how my life can change.
I think Sweden will stand together with us and be a part of this 1 million more Bibles and the Gospel of John.
And please allow me to say thank you also from all the churches that will receive this new order. We say thank you from their hearts to you. And they need your help.
Russia is in our hearts also. But then, Hanno, we have Ukraine. We must talk some about Ukraine.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Because I know that you have some new challenges from the Ukrainian people and churches.
10 days ago, I just came back from Ukraine, from actually in Kiev that time. We met with the bishops and the pastors from the war zone, East Ukraine. You know that there's over 350 kilometers of war zone. It means that you have dozens of towns, villages, cities that are in the conflict zone. And it means that every single day they hear gunfire. Every single day, someone is firing from the Russian-controlled side onto the eastern side, onto the western Ukrainian side, where we have been ourselves. And it's violence. Every single day people die. And so, but the pastors say we are getting used to this also. You know, it's been going on for 4 years. And the only way that it will stop, not by shooting, not with guns. The Russians don't have the ammunition to stop the situation, and neither do the Ukrainians. The only solution is to change the minds of people, and to bring reconciliation, to bring forgiveness into the deep, deep wounds of people. For they are suffering, they have lost their husbands or their wives or their sons or their daughters, children in this war. And they're saying that the only way that this could ever be stopped is by bringing forgiveness and reconciliation. So they are saying that this campaign, they're asking us to come, like I said earlier in a program, one of the other programs, it would be 250 kilometers of war zone, starting from the Sea of Azov, which is Mariupol, the city of Mariupol, all the way up to past Donetsk to Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. But now, 10 days ago, the pastors were saying, we are asking you to extend the territory from 250 kilometers to 350 kilometers, to extend from Donetsk all the way up to Lugansk, which is the next hotspot where there's a lot of fighting. And so they are saying, let's do this, and we can reach the whole territory, both sides of the conflict zone, with television, with social media, and with radio. Let's do it, and let's bring healing to this region. And so we are praying that God would mightily bless.
What about the churches? I mean, they are calling for help.
It's their idea. It was not our idea to come into a war zone. We have enough work on our hands, enough countries asking us to come. We don't need to go into a war zone. But because they came to us, and because they pleaded, and they said, we really ask you to consider coming to help us in a very difficult region. And so we prayed about it, and we said, okay. We felt the Holy Spirit directing us. We are doing it.
Yeah. What about the future? What do they say about the future? I mean, the pastors of these. What can they say about the younger generation? There is hope for a future in the churches and the Christianity in Ukraine, because Ukraine is a quite hard country as well.
Well, it is, but Ukraine has always been the most Christianized part of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union was still standing, the most Christian part of the Soviet Union was Ukraine, believe it or not. Even then. It doesn't mean that everybody was a Christian, no. But it means that there were more Christians in Ukraine than in all of Russia. And that's why even today you have hundreds, if not thousands, of churches or small groups whose pastor today is a Ukrainian, not a Russian.
Wow.
It's because there aren't enough pastors in Russia, Russian pastors. So they have come from Ukraine, all from the times of the Soviet Union. The biggest churches in Russia today are pastored by Ukrainian pastors.
We really want the people in Sweden, our partners, to understand that in South Sudan and in the Arabic department, and also in Russia and Ukraine, we need help. We cannot do this by ourselves. It's impossible.
We don't mention the funds that we actually need for the campaigns. The campaigns, they do require a lot of money. I mean, one campaign, generally speaking, one campaign will cost 200,000 euros, which is about 2 million Swedish crowns. That's in general. And of course, you have more expensive ones and lesser expensive ones. So you see immediately, it's not only what we're talking about today, but there's also a lot of other expense. But as you said, Morgan, God is the one that he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, as they say. And we have seen how God has faithfully supplied. When he sends you into battle, when he sends you on a mission, he sends you also supplied with what you need. And we have seen that happen over 100 times.
When you love God, then you love people. And in love, there is a miracle anointing to see a breakthrough, even in the finances and resources. The people, we need people. We need hearts and hands and feet. There is some, we must love.
Yeah, the secret of revival in house or in home, in churches, in any ministries, it is, you know, your motive inside. You know, like if you want to build God's kingdom, God will bless it. But if you want to build your kingdom, then it will shrink, you know. And that's why, you know, it is really tested, like David when he prayed, God, test my way, you know. So, and it is really, you know, like daily prayer of each of us, you know, like, God, test my motivation, why I am doing this kind of things. Because the word is broken, and sometimes we are disunity, and we fight, everybody building his kingdom and so on. But really, God, if we don't take it, God will find stones to speak. So again, you know, it is advantage, it is honor to serve the Lord and to go outside for those people they are really need.
People say sometimes to me also when I'm traveling that this is a hard place, it's a so dark place. But I said, there is no hard place, no hard cities. It's a lack of love.
But one thing, you know, when you, Bible describe hell, how people, they you know, can spend their eternity there. And if we keep silent, we are really not understanding that, you know. It is, we are calling people to transform from hell to heaven. It is serious matter, man. They cannot change after that. So that's why before their death day, so let's like catch it and
let's keep on. During this program we have been talking about the rabbit department, what we are doing, and we are so thankful to God and to the staff and Hanin and Hanno about Russia and Ukraine. It's still going on, and God will provide us, and it's much more to do. As long as we live, we will serve God.
Amen.
Och du som lyssnar, så vill vi att du ska veta att det finns en hemsida som heter mediemission.se som du kan läsa om vårt arbete, det som finns i pipeline. Du kan också ge en gåva i vårt 90-konto 900307-0. Du har också ett Swish-nummer på skärmen du kan se just nu, och du kan ge via Mastercard och Visa-card på vår hemsida. Ta gärna kontakt med oss. Har du frågor så mejla, ring, smsa, så hör vi av oss, och vi vill ge dig det bästa vi kan från Mediemission International och från studion här i Finland. Det är Guds rika välsignelse. Tack.